The following is a presentation of the ForceCenter podcast feed.
From the center of the galaxy, this is the ForceCenter podcast feed, and this particular episode is a deep dive. We're going to dive deep into the first half of Visions Season 2. So this is our episode, Visions Season 2, Part 1. Confused? Well, it will hopefully make more sense later. I'm Joseph Scrimshaw.
I'm Ken Napzok. I get confused easily anyways, but I'm happy to be here and happy to be on a deep dive. Even though these are reviews of content of Star Wars art and just like our show reviews. I love our deep dive vibe is back.
Yeah, it is really fun to be able to just attempt to slow down and take some time with the Star Wars stories, because it feels like we are lucky to have lots of Star Wars stories, but it also makes me want to, as a fan, be able to pump the brakes and try to spend a little bit of quality time with each one. Because I feel a little bit like the famous old Simpsons dream of Homer dancing through the chocolate land of this is great, but there's so much and I want to slow down and enjoy each piece of chocolate.
That's amazing. Wonderful reference. Wonderful reference.
Speaking of references, that's not a good transition, but it is a transition to let you know that today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download in a 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/ForceCenter. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. This week, we are continuing to recommend Battle Scars by Sam Meggs. We read this book. We enjoyed this book. If you want to give it a listen and then listen to our deep dive discussion of it, you can download a free audiobook today by going to audibletrial.com/ForceCenter. One more time, that's audibletrial.com/ForceCenter for your free audio book. Ken, this is now the part of the podcast where we've been doing an ask. But when I did the rundown, I left it blank. My bad. So do you want to, what do you want to highlight for ForceCenter? The Patreon, the survey? What would you like to highlight today?
No, our current ask is meditation. It's open to your mind. Both. We've got the survey up there at surveymonkey.com, and because the droid numbers aren't in front of me, I encourage you to just go to our Twitter page, ForceCenter Pod, and find the link. It's been very valuable and important as we look towards the future of ForceCenter. To get your responses, get your honest responses, just what you listen to and how many times and what you're interested in and what do you want a t-shirt or not? Those kind of wonderful things. You all been answering wonderfully. So find that survey. We're trying to get to 1,000 responses, which is kind of a good number for marketing purposes. And we're a little over halfway there. So head over to our Twitter to find that link to the survey on surveymonkey.com. And hey, while you're also there, check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/ForceCenter. Speaking of the future of ForceCenter, that is something that is key to our existence. But also, as always, if you want to support us, telling friends, retweeting, liking, and listening is a good way as well. So there's a bunch of asks.
Yeah, that's great. You covered it all and very quickly. We've been so lucky to have so much growth on the Patreon. In the survey, there was a big burst, but it's still rolling. I keep kind of checking it multiple times today. Go like, I bet we've got as many responses as we're going to, but it does keep ticking up. So thank you to everybody who's taken the time to do that. Particularly, if you're not in the Patreon on our Discord, or maybe you're not on social media a lot and you're just hearing it, it's really valuable. Hearing us talk about the survey, it's really valuable to hear from you, because the people on our Patreon, the people on social media, we hear from a lot, but we know we have listeners who aren't in those places. So hearing your responses and being able to kind of see some of that in the survey is great. I know you were joking, Ken, but I also really like the way that you phrased the question. Do you want a t-shirt or not? Maybe for fun, we should put out just like a real assertive, borderline passive aggressive survey where things are jokingly phrased. What do you want? Huh?
Well, I'll tell you what people do like the merch tier with the ForceCenter coffee mug. I'm calling it Calf Center in Discord. We got some folks posting their pictures of their coffee mugs. And start your day with ForceCenter in your mouth and in your ears. There you go.
We'll workshop that, I think.
Maybe.
Yeah. And speaking of asks, I do want to quickly mention that as this episode is releasing pretty much around the same time that this episode is going live, I'm also launching a Kickstarter crowdfunding campaign for a short film that I'm working on. It is called The Nightmare Adorable. It's a horror film, but it is a horror film about the relationship between horror and comedy. It is about two hosts of a horror YouTube streaming pop culture show who, out of fun, make a cute toy of a dark elder Cthulhu-like god. But then that makes an actual cultist of the real god real angry. So that's the basic story. Very lucky to have our friend of the podcast, Hal Lublin, starring, as well as the great Amy Vorpal. And Ken has agreed to play a very cool role in this short film. So if you're at all interested in checking that out, you can check on my social media page. It's all over that on Twitter, Facebook, all those places, or you can just go to Kickstarter and search for The Nightmare Adorable. This is the first day, and part of the reason I'm taking a moment to plug it vociferously is first day contributions really, really help campaigns. So if you're at all interested in checking it out, please do check it out, and thank you everyone for all of the support.
Happy to be part of this. Excited though. I was a little bummed at the first rehearsal. You said I can't just keep screaming one way out. That this wasn't it. That wasn't the role.
Well, I think we have an idea for a deleted scene. Let's film some deleted scenes. It would be
Perfect.
absolutely great. All right, we have got many plugs out of the way, so now it is time to dive deep into Visions Season 2, Part 1. Ken, I think you and I are both in the same place where we just watched the first half-ish. We watched
Yeah.
the first 4 of 9. We're going to do an episode next week. We're going to talk about the back half. Why did you choose to just watch the first 4? Did you just want to have the focus on the ones that we're discussing today, or did something else motivate that?
Look, I got to be honest. I think this is going to be an honest episode for me. And time, and the sense of, I don't want to be overwhelmed and just have to sit down and watch 9 of these stories and feel like I'm moving through them, like kind of what you were saying up top. And then also, I didn't want to get confused in my notes, but time was the big reason. And actually, as we get into the overall thoughts in a second, I felt a little rushed, and then once these started, everything had kind of slowed down, and I enjoyed it.
Yeah, similar thing for me. I think the keyword is savor. I wanted to savor each one and let myself sink into it and stay focused and really have this discussion be about these individual episodes. And I think next week, when we finish the rest of them, we'll probably have more to say about the whole shape of the season. But we do want to talk about our overall reaction to the season so far. Again, with the giant flashing caveat, we've only watched the first 4, excited for the rest. But given these first 4, Ken, what is your overall reaction to this second season of Visions?
This is where I want to make sure I'm honest, and we always couch our honesty and trying to respect everyone else's opinions for all content or experiences. Unless I'm streaming Jedi Survivor and I get angry, then a little too much rage showed through. But I've continued to play the game, by the way, and despite being lost for 2 hours yesterday on something I needed 2 minutes to complete, I'm enjoying my experience a little bit more. So, in the spirit of honesty, I love the first season. You and I had fun diving into them. I love that everyone loves the first season Visions. That's it for me. I've not gone back and revisited them. I didn't feel the need to. Or distance and time has made me almost kind of confused over which episode was what. And I still love the band, the rock band one, the Jedi Rocks one, which gets weird looks sometimes when I mention it to people. I think it just stood out, and I love the vibe, love the who you are has value theme in that one. So I went into this emotionally flat. I just the trailer, everyone, it looked good. A lot of people at Celebration who had seen a couple of them were like, oh my God. And again, love that for you. Love that for Star Wars. Love that for the studios. Love that for all the people and cultures represented in these. But I just kind of went like, all right, here we go. ForceCenter assignment day. And happy to report almost from the opening shot of the first episode. Man, I just was like, I get it again, right? You know what I mean? Like, that's right. These might still overall might not be my favorite things, but I can be moved and I can really respect it. And I was just pulled in almost immediately with the Sith one.
Yeah, well, that's great to hear. I was definitely pulled in all the way. I don't think I had any sort of negativity, and I don't want to put that word on you. I didn't have
Oh
any
yeah, I know.
negativity going in. I was extremely excited for them. I love the visual storytelling. I love the idea of seeing all the different perspectives that are going to come from having these be from so many different cultures in parts of the world. I was my only holdback was feeling like, can I get to a place where I can slow down and
Yeah.
not have it feel like got to stay caught up. Um,
Mhm, mhm,
and
mhm.
and you're right that they were so effective
Yeah.
uh, that they utterly grabbed me. I also sometimes have a thing where like I want to have enough time to watch everything first, just like I'm just watching as a fan. The pause button is verboten, no matter what. Don't
Yeah,
can't
yeah, yeah.
pause.
Right,
Just
right, right.
take it in, let it wash over you, and then go back and do in analytical viewing. Um,
Mhm.
and I had time to do that with the first one with the Sith. I got up on May the 4th and I was just like, I just want to, I can't watch a whole movie. I just want to start my day with some bite-sized Star Wars. And I was like, oh, hey, perfect
Yeah, yeah.
visions. So I started May the 4th with the Sith, and I ended May the 4th with I Am Your Mother. So I got a chance to watch those two and just let them wash over me. And then
Yeah.
before we recorded this morning, I set aside some time and watched all the first four from a more analytical pause to write things down, take screenshots kind of perspective.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so far, my reaction is it's doing some different things from the first season, but it's
Mm.
also just doing the thing I love most from the first season, which is pulling out core Star Wars ideas, visuals, emotions, themes, and
Mhm.
just celebrating these ideas
Yeah.
free of canon and continuity. Each one is meaningful, but they also just feel like a mural of Star Wars in a
Mm.
great way. Um, they
Mm.
all have great world building of their own and storytelling, so I don't mean that in any way to lessen them, but it is just like this powerful micro dose
Yeah.
of Star Wars.
Mm.
And each one to me has some are more focused, and some I think are have a lot of different ideas going on in them.
Yeah.
But it was fun to kind of watch the first four and see like different elements of Star Wars, and specifically things that are very close to George Lucas's heart being celebrated. The idea of
Mm.
like pure visual storytelling. The little bit of dialogue in the Sith is great and needed, but it's such visual storytelling and in
Yeah.
love with visual storytelling. There's so much in these first four that's about the importance of generational knowledge and your parents. These are coming of age stories. There are stories that celebrate whimsy and kindness, and there's
Mm.
stories that are morality tales that are warnings about the choices you make. There are so many individual ideas that, free of any canon or narrative, or is there going to be a season two, or did this creator
Mhm.
agree with that creator? Kind of freed of any of that stuff. It's you're just simmering in the idea and nothing else.
Yeah, well said on that. The core themes shine through, and I think looking back at the first one, I did the same thing. The first volume did those core themes. It just all I thought focused on like a New Hope Kurosawa vibe that Lucas loved. Like it took that and just exploded all that out there. And this one,
Hmm.
I felt the different focuses. Um, the whole a lot of the themes of motherhood, which we kind of knew coming in. I think we'd heard some stuff that some of the themes, at least in some of the bigger ones there, that kind of shone through as well, and it worked on that scale.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think I was also affected this morning just watching the first four in a row in
Mm,
seeing how much women protagonists were centered. Um
absolutely.
and that great. I think it's one of the things that is important about representation and diversity is getting to see so many different sides of people. And you and I think it's something I'm always going to be aware of, because you and I grew up in the era where the team of six and this one's the tough guy, this one's the nerd, this one's a woman. And it was often you'd see narratives that had one woman character, which
Hmm,
then
hmm.
has this weight of, is this story saying uh, able to present this person as a multifaceted complex person or by default, because it's the only woman there, is this a statement on who women are?
Yeah.
So I'm always affected because I think I come from that era of stories where we get to see all of these different facets of characters.
Yeah. Yeah, thinking back to that time, you got your team, and this is who you are. What a wonderful thing to grow beyond.
Yes, the Smurfette era.
Yes, yes.
Great, and no disrespect to Smurfette, but great to move
No,
on. That's my review of Visions too. We've come a long way from Smurfette. That's my review.
the
Uh,
historians will call it the Smurfette era.
uh, Also affected by the fact that these are three stories of real Sith and Empire heavy
Mm,
presence, heavy sense of oppression, and then the bonkers fun one
mhm.
in a better era of the New Republic also aligns the villains with the Sith.
Yes, yes.
So,
Yeah,
a lot of women fighting back against horrific Sith and Imperial oppression.
yeah, yeah. God, I can't wait to talk about Angelica Houston as the Sith mother. I have questions more than anything about that. Yeah, no, well said. And yeah, the I'm Your Mother Aardman one really stands out. It's much like the Rockstar one back at the first volume did for me, of just that big gear shift, but everything's still in line with the themes.
Yeah, you've talked a little bit about the kind of for yourself a compare and contrast to this season, given the first one. Um, do you have other feelings on that about how different or similar
I,
these two seasons are?
I just felt it. I mean, they're very similar in what they are setting out to do. And again, volume one, I really think um, that they made the smart play to be like all these studios and not one genre, but just one style overall. Just this real strong statement on that core of Star Wars again that we keep talking about that George went back to a lot, and Filoni goes to a lot too, by the way. But this one I just felt already in just um, 4 episodes. Felt that this was exactly what it was advertised as. Studios around the world and how
Hmm.
they make art and how they view art and the stories they're telling. It just enhanced the experience and made Visions Volume 2 already 4 in feel a little bigger. Which again, I'm trying to choose my words carefully, as because I don't want to sound negative towards the first one. I wasn't, but I thought this was a more robust experience for me.
Yeah, again need to finish the whole season to see what the variety is like, because there's a ton of variety, but there is some similar ideas and themes to see what people are
Mhm,
gravitating toward,
mhm,
and wonder how much of that is history in different parts of the world versus the challenges that the entire world is facing
mhm,
right
mhm.
now. That's all fascinating stuff. I'm so glad that season one exists. Season two is wonderful, but I'm really glad that they started season one with Japanese animation,
Yeah.
because Star Wars was so heavily influenced by the art and the culture of Japan and Japanese storytelling, that I feel like it was really appropriate to have that highlight. I
Yeah.
think there was great variety within the animation styles of Japan, of anime,
Mhm,
but it was all within that one thing. So I think it's incredibly amazing and wonderful that it exists. I'm thrilled with it, and I'm now glad that it's taken a step into another season where we're seeing even more
mhm,
cultural ideas. And I'd be fine if it keeps going for a real long time and it expands to more and more cultures. I'd be fine if it was, hey, the next season, season three, we're going back to almost a season one idea, and let's really focus on one specific culture and see what
mhm.
8 animation studios from that culture has to say. I think they're both valuable.
Yeah.
um I think it was also interesting for me in terms of like the similarity and differences, having a couple years now with Vision season one, to know how I ended up relating to volume one, is
Mhm,
that watched them all multiple times for our deep dive, enjoyed discussing them, enjoyed digging into the ideas. The way I've ended up interacting with them over the years is there are 3 that I rewatch when I sometimes just want a little bite size bit of Star
Mhm.
Wars. The Elder has become really my favorite, but I watch The Elder, The Duel, The Village Bride sometimes when I'm just like, I'm just in a Star Wars mood. I don't have time to, start a third
Yeah,
Rebels rewatch. I'm just gonna watch The Elder, and
it's great.
it's really amazing how much it satisfies the Star Wars desire while also still being unique in its own thing.
Yeah, no, I love that. Love that.
Awesome. Well, let's dive into the specific episodes we're discussing, starting with episode 1, The Sith from Giri Studios, written and directed by Rodrigo Blas. What was your overall reaction to this one, Ken?
This is I'm trying try to I it wasn't like I was on the couch with my arms crossed, okay? But I was like, all right, we got to do this, right? We got to do this. And so it's a little bit of a grumpy mindset. I was like Grease on the Mantis, like, all right, coward. So I started it, and then plus here's the thing, knowing that it was titled Sith, right? Or the Sith. I have this weird kind of, I don't know, defensive feeling towards Star Wars versus those that are just like they have Sith posters on their wall, right? Like we know
Hmm.
those. And so I got to admit, I was just like, oh, here we go. And then within seconds, there's just some beauty all through this episode, right? It's truly this colors versus darkness, the colors, painting, art. It is an art piece that is about art and all those kind of things. And I just immediately felt a sense of calm, which is weird in an episode maybe titled "The Sith." And you got the little droid there, little crab droid. I forgot to write down his
E2.
E2. Thank you. I meant to go back and do that. Just immediately, and it's such a wonderful kind of Star Wars design, prequel-ish, a little separatist-ish too, as
Mm.
well, which kind of it makes some sort of sense overall with the themes. And that shot, there's that one shot, and I put it down in some favorite moments, but it's important to talk about the overall where Lola is sleeping, having the nightmare, sitting there, and it's a white wall with all that black kind of like leading in. And it's just such a beautiful and also dark, somber piece of art, like a painting that I just was like, all right, my arms uncrossed. You got me. You got me. And right from there it was pulled in.
Well, yeah, that's powerful. And you can edit this out if I'm sharing something from your life that you don't want me to share.
Sure.
Uh, but you have some paintings in the wall of your home that don't look dissimilar to what
Yes.
Lola is wrestling with. Your partner Grace's
Uh-huh.
wonderful paintings have a similar energy, and I think
Mhm.
a
Mhm.
similar dance with the light and the dark
Yeah.
in a really beautiful way that I hadn't thought about until you were talking about.
I did think about that and even told her this morning. I was watching the third one and she kind of crossed in the living room and she kind of was like, "What are you watching? This is really sad." Like, what are you watching? And I said, "Yeah," I was explaining what Visions is, and I said, "I think you really will like the first one, so I'm going to try to see if I can get her to watch that because I think you're absolutely right."
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Mhm.
great. Yeah, my overall reaction to this one was, man, what a way to start Star Wars Day on May the
Mhm.
4th.
Mhm.
This was a sort of my soul's jaw was on the floor, put it that way.
Mhm.
I love that it's the Force as a painting class.
Mhm. Mhm.
It
Mhm.
is I know I have mentioned perhaps too often that I got a visual art degree, but there was a lot of drawing classes, but a lot more painting classes, and I spent a good chunk of
Mhm.
my time on the not only in art classes, but it was a take your work home, and I spent a lot of time on the floor of my tiny bedroom, uh, covered in paint. So it really, really spoke to me to use that visual language, not only of animation, but specifically of paint and
Mhm.
that idea of you choose the colors. You are bringing something into this world, and are you bringing in something dark? And is it dark and beautiful, or
Mhm.
are you just
Mhm.
bringing in something horrible, in that feeling of paint literally being everywhere and being caked in it, and how much do you control the paint and how much is the paint climbing on you?
Mhm.
um, all that stuff was extremely powerful. I'm sure anybody who watches it can feel that. It was visceral to me from the experience I've had with painting and being in that world.
Yeah, no, beautifully, just a beautiful introspective piece that the switch from a former Sith making good, so to speak. That's a real TV guide summary of what just happened. That stood out too right away. Especially even the Lolo's design, right? That kind of that white/gray streak, which ties into maybe it seems the balance and everything, but to me showed a little bit of maturity, a little bit of age. And I love coming of age stories. I love the generational exchange and the generational change points of even some of the ones in this batch and the overall vibes. But this one, I was also pulled in by that the journey never really ends, and you can find new beginnings, and that it wasn't someone who is discovering this for the first time, as someone who's maybe struggled with it, had gone on a journey, wanted to change that journey, and I thought that was a good use of Sith turned Jedi. Maybe, we don't know. Doesn't matter. Sith on her own path.
Yeah, no, I really agree with you. I found myself as I was making notes, kind of thinking of what other parts of Star Wars do some of these remind me of. And this one to me had a little bit of it reminded me of the Kenobi television show because I
Mhm.
agree with you. This was a coming of middle age
Yeah.
story. I am on my path. I have had ups and downs. I'm trying to take back the reins of my life, but it's not working. How do I take back the reins of my life and make it what I want it to be? It isn't the first step. It's the ongoing adventure. And I really feel like this story and the animation had a little bit of the classic Star Wars. Sometimes really gets to have its cake and eat it too when it comes to the dark side. uh,
Mhm.
there's the fun of the baddies. There's the visual power, the dark fantasy of it. There's a reason that Vader is an icon. There's a reason that people are drawn to Maul. It's horror movie stuff. It's like imagine being that. What is that? And being
Yeah.
tempted by it, and also just going, well, damn, that looks cool. This is
Yeah.
serious. All that stuff. So it really leaned into everything that is great
Yeah. Yeah.
about the dark side and the Sith, but to me was not an endorsement of it.
Yes.
And I'll say this is our overall reaction, is my overall reaction. Then we can get into the actual ideas. I was waiting with bated breath to see if this was a gray Jedi story, and I feel like
Uh,
it was not.
yes.
Uh,
Yes.
so with that said, let's get into the big picture ideas.
Mm.
What did you feel this story was about? What was at stake in the Sith?
Well, I'll start with right where you left off. I wrote down this. I thought it was a statement of truth, a statement of honesty, and not an advertisement for Great Jedi. It was a way to step forward into the light as you truly are. And we have light, we have darkness. There's a balance to be found. It is something you're always going to struggle with, but that's who you are. So it's forging your own destiny as you are. And yes, you want to change, and yes, you want to grow. And her master was someone who I would not say is balanced and not dancing in the middle. And she was not just in the middle. I can touch the darkness, I can touch the light. No, it's an acknowledgement of a truth. This is all in me. This is all in me. And I can move forward as that. And I can move forward in my own way. And I'm really with you because there was something about it early on. I was like, they're not. Wait a minute, because I love this. They're not suggesting. Are they suggesting? No. The timer master shows up, and I agree with you. I made a note of that too. They're just the Sith Master's design was so good that it reminded me why people buy T-shirts of the dark side, right?
Mhm.
Or buy those figures first.
They're
Totally get it.
bleeping cool. The dark side is cool, as
Yeah.
Lucas says with a sigh. People like the villains, but they
People like
do because they're cool.
G.I. Joe, Cobra had the better toys. Empire's the better toys. So that was good, but that is a character not balanced, and so I thought that was a great way to just where the whole story went.
Yeah, that is a character who
Yeah,
was determined to enforce his will and his desires on
yeah,
somebody else's life.
yeah.
Uh, yeah. Yeah, I really felt like this was how to wrestle with the dark side 101.
Mhm.
Um, I loved this picture of somebody who it was trying to reject the dark side by 1000% denying it.
Yeah. Yeah.
My take on it from the that she chose to live in a dark place. It was set up
Mm,
from the beginning, trying to get up in the morning and have some calf with a bounce in her step, joking with her droid while an eclipse is coming.
mm, mhm,
uh, while this darkness is coming for her, the Sith Master comes,
mhm,
to try to force her back into the darkness. But I also took it from when she rides out to check out the sensor. The place she's living looks a lot like Vader's castle.
mhm,
Like
mhm,
she has made the choice to go to a place that is consumed in darkness,
mm.
and it's not just. It's almost like in myself, I want to stamp out
Yeah.
anything that has ever been dark. A little bit coated with some of the history of more machine than man. Kenobi's quote of having the
Mm,
arm and wondering what happened to it.
mm,
Clearly was once an apprentice. All those things, but that trying to have that utter rejection of it and having
mm,
that not work is really powerful, visually told, very clear in the story.
mm.
But I think for me, why I call it How to Wrestle with the Dark Side 101 is just that acceptance that she has of light and darkness are part of the painting, part of me.
Mm, mhm.
And it's accepting it. It's accepting the reality that fear and anger and sadness, these things are all real and we can't deny them.
Mm,
We
mm.
choose how we respond to them. And
Yeah.
I think the gray Jedi thing for me is that idea that both sides are right. The dark side is not right
Mhm, mhm,
to me.
mhm.
It's real and it has to be accepted and dealt with so that you can choose when to be honest with yourself about it, but you can choose when to reject it. And I've never liked the gray Jedi thing of like, yeah, some days I am a champion of the light, and other times, well, you
Yeah.
gotta let that Sith lightning out of your fingers. For me, it has always been about a little bit sitting on the fence, and I
Mhm,
think
mhm.
uh, no offense to anybody who likes the Gray Jedi theory. Talking about my take, to me, it's always been the idea that I think is here is that the light side, connection, growth, exploration, beauty, colors, life. That
Mm,
is the light side. And that's what she chooses to go to.
mhm,
But
mhm.
in order to get to it, she needs to acknowledge the reality of darkness, but not serve it.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not afraid versus I'm afraid, and how can I overcome that is one way to look at it. And in terms of our thoughts and theories on the Great Jedi, I think that's what's always bothered me about it I think there's a confusion too between, say, the dark side. This is total Star Wars in the weeds conversation, right? But the
Hmm.
dark side and the Sith kind of one and the same. Like the Sith aren't just simply dark side users. They aim to snuff out the light, right?
Hmm.
And that's one of the differences. You don't get to one day tip your waiter well and the next dine and dash. That's not balance. That's not how it goes. The Sith have always been um uh, uh uh, you know they confirmed with their beliefs and definitely connected with one way of doing things and I'm with you on it. Of just the power of acknowledging this is what's really in me, or hey, I do have a temper. I am susceptible to rage. I can't deny that. I've got to deal with that, and I've got to incorporate that into how I exist, and know when it's a problem, and know when it's there, and how can I. All those kind of things are pretty valuable on a day to day basis.
Yeah, and just making it this cool Star Wars, beautifully animated Star Wars action scene, but also making it a painting and connecting it to
Mhm.
the idea of art, of you're trying to express what's in your soul. And humans are complicated, messy creatures, and there's
Mhm.
there's awful things in us, and
Mhm.
one of the ways to deal with that is to express it in a safe way, to express it in art. And um and the most important thing is how do what actions do we take?
Yeah.
And I love that she accepted that she can't force this temple, this world, this painting to
Mm,
be something it isn't.
mhm,
And it's an acknowledgement of what is, but then her actions, and this is what really sold it for me is, that second blade comes out, the red blade,
mm,
but she doesn't start screaming. She doesn't start saying, you know, uh, I'm gonna go on a mission and kill every Sith, and I'm
uh-huh.
gonna make people pay. It's very Jedi like.
Yeah.
It's calm and precise because she's in touch with herself, and it's defense because
Mm.
this person is not going to leave her alone.
Yeah.
He's trying to take the reins of her life, and she is balanced in saying, "No, those are my reins. This is my life. I'm taking it." But it's all very balanced, very peaceful. And when she flies away, the last image
Yeah.
is there's still bits and pieces of darkness, but what she wants comes into focus, which is
Mhm,
bursts of beautiful, lively color. That's not somebody who has given in to the dark side. That's
mhm,
someone who has acknowledged it, and the acknowledgement of it has allowed her to make the choice she wants, which is
mhm.
discovery, color, life, connection.
Yeah, the ability to move forward with all of that, I think of look at Luke having a flash of anger over Ben, and then him not that scaring him, not dealing with it, running away from it, right? And you have to come to terms with that before you move forward and move forward in your own way. I thought it was very similar theme and vibe, just told so wonderfully different. So
Yeah.
it's just we keep mentioning it, but just the use it truly was a living painting.
It was a living painting. Yeah. I think this one also connected to me because it reminded me of when I worked at Kinko's, now FedEx
Mhm,
Office. I've said this before. I worked in downtown Minneapolis. It was really stressful and rough. It was a lot of high money demanding clients
mhm,
and people having a hard time. It was really stressful. So to cope with it, uh, everybody who worked there complained a lot.
mhm,
And I
mhm.
think we kinda got to a dark side place where we all complained a lot, uh, to because that was how we coped, but then we got a new manager. It was just like, "Everybody who works here is just a downer, full of negativity," and the manager tried to,
Mhm.
institute a no negativity policy,
Mm, 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 mm.
which only made it more negative, and it was just like a good life lesson for me of like, "Yeah, I'm tipping into the dark side because 'cause I'm coming to work every day furious before
Yeah,
anything happens." But then he tried to address this by saying, "Bury the truth of the
yeah,
frustrations," and neither of those work. And
yeah.
that this story really reminded me of that life experience.
From Sith to FedEx Office, Kinko's, I think it all works there. Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Did you have any favorite moments of action or comedy or a specific shot, any specific moments you wanted to shout out in this short?
Yeah, in the beginning, I talked about how some of the art just immediately, grabbed me in, and it's the value of doing this series and without the pressure of canon. And I have to admit, sometimes I think I look at this series not as a less than, but I just look at it as this thing on the side because I'm like, I'm focused on canon. I'm not this canon lorehead that needs everything to be and can't appreciate anything outside of it. But I just think, especially because of what we do, I'm just more focused on, all right. What does this mean? What does this mean to the timeline? What does this mean? Kind of stuff. There's that energy, which is not always a great energy. So I think the vibe really calmed me right away to remind me of why we do this and seeing the art kind of come to life. But then there's a moment early. Right before the colors in her calf turn black, right before those bubbles go from bright to dark, from light to dark,
Mhm.
she says, "I got this." And I don't know. There's something really wonderful and honest about that. In that moment, she's trying. She's getting up every day. She's having these horrendous nightmares. She's down one arm. She's got a robot arm. There's a lot of things, but she still has this vibe of "I got this," which was I thought set the tone for the episode so well.
Yeah, and it's who her character is, like,
Mhm.
I'm determined, I'm gonna find a way
Yeah.
and finds the best way. Yeah, that initial shot, the character's name in the credits, Lola, the initial shot of the water bubbles not just turning bright, but turning diverse.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
the idea that that's the light side, all these different ideas,
Yeah.
and then the dark side is just all the same. The rot. Just one of the better visual storytelling
Mhm.
moments, of, oh, what's at stake? Got it.
Yeah.
So that was really powerful in terms of just cool action shots. There'd be so many, but I liked the surprise of the cute little droid, E2's face just turning into a cannon. And
Oh,
I was
yeah.
expecting, like, the big, body shot to the Sith droid, and it goes flying into the distance, and how can we make this as big as possible? And I just love that big cannon just neatly popping the head off the
Yeah.
Sith droid, like, you're popping the head off a flower.
It was something else. I love that moment. And yeah, absolutely with you on that one there. Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And the other thing for me that I'd say that I really, really enjoyed about this is that, while it was entirely its own aesthetic, it was fun to see it pull from lots of different places,
Mm.
in canon Star Wars. I love that her main ride was a lot like Grievous's wheel bike.
Wonderful design.
The old Republic vibe of this Sith Master was great.
Hmm.
Probably the biggest thing is, when the doors are thrown open and all of these different creators are being told pull from wherever you want in Star Wars. I thought the guards with the Sith Master had a real Sith Trooper from Rise of Skywalker vibe to me. And I
Totally.
know designs like that have been in EU and Legends and that, but they really looked like they were hopping out of Rise of Skywalker, and it was great to see more modern Star Wars visuals in this.
Totally agree with all that there. And the Grievous, I'm what I'm calling the Grievous speeder, which was very much its own thing at the same time. It was such a wonderful
Mhm.
design. And again, going to like the canon of all, I'm not here to have that canon discussion or canon debate. These are as they need to be, and they're their own thing. But man, I keep saying, start drafting from this roster of designers and creators, and pull them, and let's see what they can do, and bring some of this aesthetic to the canon side of Star Wars, for lack of a better term. You know what I mean? Like, just a wonderful take on designs that I was very familiar with, right? Like, oh, the Grievous thing, oh, but it's doing something else, and those blasters, and where the droid even fits in on it, was amazing to me.
Oh yeah,
Overall.
yeah, I could go through tons and tons of shots that were great in this,
Mhm.
I think this is definitely one that I'll just be throwing on to enjoy visually for a bite-sized bit of Star Wars.
Yeah, yeah,
All
agreed.
right, we're gonna move on then to the second episode. Episode 2 is Screechers Reach. This is by Cartoon Salon Studios, an Irish company, directed by Paul Young, written by Will Collins and Jason Tamarmagi. Apologies for the probably less than great pronunciation. What was your overall reaction to this one?
Um, I liked it. It even scared me a little bit. It was also really sad, and, and but real, and reminded me a lot of Anakin taking his journey forward, and his final moments with his mom and Phantom Menace, and definitely had those things going on. So I really liked it. But it might be one that I don't revisit much going forward, because I just thought it was really sad. It's like when ET leaves. You know, there's big lessons in it there we'll talk about, but yeah.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, yeah, this is not a feel good
Yeah,
rewatch.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, you know what I mean?
But I thought it was amazing. Yeah, that's really fascinating to say. I think a lot of its punch is in a first viewing, which
Mhm,
is not to say that there isn't things to enjoy, because the aesthetics are strong. They're going to be, I think, anytime that a story has a twist, it's always really fun to watch it a second, a third time, and
mhm.
see how the twist is built, to watch the mechanics of it. A second viewing of Sixth Sense is just as interesting as the first one,
Yeah,
kind of thing, to reference a pretty famous twist.
yeah.
Um, I thought that's part of what was amazing about this, is the subversion of tropes, a true look at the familiar from a fresh angle.
Mm,
What
mhm.
if the cave vision is not in your mind? What if the call to larger things is a trap,
Yeah,
a horrible, sad manipulation? Um,
yeah.
I also am in no way an expert, so happy to be corrected by people who are of the culture. But to me, there was a sense of what I understand from storytelling, from some friends, of Irish folklore and
Mhm.
history.
Mhm.
The idea of the sort of the Dagobah dark side cave, but it's a dark mountain and it's a witch in the cave.
Mhm.
The uh, power of a strong working family. This picture of this family that even though they are being oppressed, which hey, look up Irish history.
Mhm. Mhm.
There's some oppression, even though that they are trapped in this sort of machinery of this system. They still have culture. They
Mhm.
still have joy. The family is still a safe, wonderful, life giving, life building place. That was powerful to me, and I think one of the things that makes it so incredibly tragic.
Yeah, there's that line from the older kid there. There are worse lives, right? And
Mhm.
responses, there are better lives. That was I thought a pretty powerful moment for me.
Yeah. Well, did you just see that, the elder figure was so supportive, so
Hmm.
wanting to help, the main character doll, seeing all of the laughing and the playing and
Yeah, I love
the
that.
working together,
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's something affecting about that, right? We talk so many times about Pisana and Rise of Skywalker being this source of joy and this lesson, not lesson for Ray, but just a reminder of what's out there in the galaxy to defend. And I thought there was something important about the laughing, the joking, and just the youth of it all, the
Yeah.
energy there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the family of it. Yeah, it reminded me a little bit of, like, it had some vibes of what I'm so enjoying about the Bad Batch of they are trapped in a horrific era of time, but there is so much power and joy from their family.
Yeah, indeed.
So what did you feel this one was about? What do you think was at stake in Screechers Reach?
I mean, look, man, this ends with a very, I said, I have just a giant, wonderful question hanging over it. And you touched upon it there. Is this call forward? What is it? What is it? And Angelica Houston showing up there at the end. Great. I love that. Love that casting. But it's the Sith mother. I was like, no, is it even more sadder than I need it to be? But hey, the call to the venture, this idea, similar to what we were just talking about, of it begins with facing your fears, not denying them, not acknowledging them, not necessarily running away from them, but knowing they're there. And I think that's a powerful reminder, and fears can have different levels and change along the way. This is a big one, and I love the idea of this. The ghost isn't necessarily something you can touch; it's something in your mind, though. It changes along the way, but that's powerful in a series, in a franchise, in a saga that's always about taking those first steps. That kind of fear is a big one, and when the fear is a screeching ghost in a mountain, that kind of freaks me out.
Yeah. I so agree with you. I think all of these really great, really solid, truly wonderful Star Wars ideas. We talk about them in Star Wars. Obviously, they are other places, but Star Wars has made it its mission to sort of
Mhm.
collect and repackage some of these ideas.
Mhm.
And those are, I think, are the things that sort of become the guardrails of what Star Wars is. And Kathleen Kennedy gave that great quote about the guardrails of Star Wars, and I don't think she was talking about being pedantic about canon. I think she was
Mhm.
talking about these big ideas. And I think what was fascinating about this is if Screechers Reach had just told the classic Star Wars stories, it still would have been really affecting because we would have seen this wonderful working class
Mhm.
oppressed family finding joy, supporting one another, helping one another. If the witch in the cave had been like
Mhm.
the Dagobah cave and it was just in the mind, if the being that had given Dahl the amulet and came for him truly was a Jedi or a will of the Force,
Mhm.
and it was sad that Dahl had to leave her family, but she did, that would have been a great Star Wars story
Great story, right?
all by itself. But
Me too. Love
instead,
all
it was all of that
that.
twisted and then a knife in the gut. And that's what's powerful, really powerful to me about it is it
Yeah.
would have been a great solid Star Wars story,
Mhm.
but it's a subversion of all those things. To
Yeah.
me, that it makes it that the idea of this piece is that good lessons, good truths, good ideals, good intentions can be twisted.
Mhm.
Um, and that's always been the story of the dark side.
Yeah.
We can all relate to Anakin feeling isolated, not as
Mm.
cared for as he needs in the beginning of his career with the Jedi. The pain of losing his mom, the fear of losing his wife, the horror of maybe Obi-Wan doesn't really care for me. Maybe everybody who does care for me is trying to keep me away from the one thing that truly makes me happy, Padme. All those things are relatable, and then he makes a horrible choice based on them.
Yeah.
Same thing recently with Dooku in Tales of the Jedi, where we see like, oh, yep, the galaxy is
Mhm.
broken, and the Jedi are neutering themselves from helping people. Their primary goal, totally relatable. But wait,
Mm.
it was
Mm.
really powerful to really emotionally be in that story from Dahl's perspective and see how, on the surface, everything sounded good, but
Mhm.
because of the lore of Star Wars, because of the hints in the storytelling, the animation, and the confirmation in the credits
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
of Sith's mother, we know that these are good lessons, good truth, good ideals being
Mhm.
used to manipulate this
Yeah.
poor child.
Yeah, one of my favorite things of the Amazon Prime show, Rings of Power, and I know that's a lot of people didn't love the show. I loved it. One of the big themes throughout that's literally the first scene and carries throughout the series is Collateral is asking, how can I tell the difference between light and darkness? When often the darkness is reflecting the light, and it's the answer is somewhat simple. You'll know, right? You'll know, but it will reveal itself. I'm summarizing a powerful season of television again, at least from my point of view. So I thought that had some of the vibes too, and part of the lesson there too. And then, like I said, it wasn't just a twist; it was a gut punch. I thought.
Yeah, yeah. I love how much it feels like when they go in the cave and they're Doll wants to go to the cave, and her family is so supportive, and
Yeah.
it's a story of togetherness, and it looks like it's just going to be a story of a lot of what we talked about for what looks like what Skeleton Crew is going to be, this coming of
Hmm.
age story where in order to get to the wonder, you have to push past the terror. And
Yeah.
when Dahl is first moving the rock, it's like, this is what Dahl needed to
Yeah. Yeah.
awaken the strength in the force, to awaken the strength in the light. But then it turns into just murder.
Yeah. Yeah.
That great twist when the witch is real and clearly terrifying and has a dark
Hmm.
blade. But to Gladriel's question,
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
it feels like Dahl knows it's wrong
Yeah.
to just go and execute this trapped
Yeah.
person who can't who probably means him and his or her and his family harm,
Mm.
but is trapped and pinned.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
uh, and then everything about the Sith mother arriving is it's
Mhm.
entirely Anakin going off with Qui-Gon.
Mhm.
But when Qui-Gon tries to explain of, being a Jedi is this utter commitment to being a Jedi, and it means leaving home. It means leaving your mom.
Yeah, yeah.
And even Shmi says, but it's your choice. You choose. This is such a great dark twist of that, of it's
Mhm.
isolation from family.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it's cruel and desired from the Sith mother, the way she says, no.
No.
And so ultimately, to me, this is a story of going from one form of oppression, the Imperial factory, to another, because
Mm. Mm.
Dahl isn't going to go and explore the stars and
Mhm.
find something bigger and new. She's going to be a tool of the Sith.
Yeah. 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 Um, I'd love to see a sequel to this. Actually, this one would have. I know why it wasn't number one. It should have been episode number one, and then episode two should have been Sith, so that way I could feel better about
It kind of worked that way a little bit for me
it.
when we got to the next one.
Yeah.
Um, So you said question. Do you question what happened, or where are you at now?
I think no I once I went to the credits, I knew it was Angelica Houston. We'd known that going in, but I just was like, oh, what was that character's name, right? And then it was like Sith Mother. This was after the first viewing, and that's when I went to, hey, wait a minute, because it is such a, it's Anakin's moment, right? Right, but then you go, you go back, and this is when you have the benefit of going back, and you benefit to not just looking at details and clues and Easter eggs that tell you what the story's about, but just really feeling it from a different vibe and feeling the fear, feeling the pain, and feeling what you just highlighted of, can we go too? No, no. Different energy emerges, right? Different energy. And even, I love the design of this bird-like ship that was also how designed very motherly is how I'll say, when you see the door open. Just to feel a different vibe from it, just by simply that reveal in the credits. But I feel it's there if you're clued in. And so that's why I said I had the question of just like, wait a minute. Whoa, wait a minute. What did I just watch?
Yeah, we can transition into favorite moments of action, comedy, or shot, because all this stuff is some of my favorite. I think this entire thing is structured to keep giving you hope. It turns when the witch is real and still screeching, but pinned and trapped and pulling at the lightsaber, and you're like, yeah, doll, don't let the witch get the lightsaber, but ooh, don't. And then that amulet, like, oh, well, maybe the amulet is from a light side person. Ooh, it glowed red.
Yeah.
Probably not. But then the ship arrives and it glows. And I had another moment where, like, okay, well, maybe it's not a Sith, because look at that glowing. And then, okay, the Sith mother's got looks a little like an angel, but a lot of red glow. And it was the no that was like, okay, that's the final statement of this. Like, can my family come too? No, with the eye glow. And then it's like, oh, yeah. But I those beats were my favorite because I felt like they were constructed to play with our emotions.
Yeah. And again, make you question how can you tell the difference? How can you tell?
Yep. Any other favorite moments for yourself?
It's so funny. I saw this tweeted before I saw the episode, but I do love the line. In my mind, I'm kicking her up the arse. I mean, that's Star Wars canon for me. That counts. That's canon.
Yeah, that was really, really great. And I particularly in, the prequel era, the Clone Wars era, that was when sometimes an alien would just be like, well, this alien's green, has 4 arms, and they're Scottish. It was great, honestly, to hear a specific culture's accent, turn of phrase, and feel like that culture made that. So I get to enjoy it for exactly what it is and not wonder,
Yeah.
is that a person doing an Irish accent, or is that an actual Irish person?
Yeah.
That was nice. I love that. I love the sense of scale in the beginning of the shots of the tiny figures in the Imperial factory, even tiny against the horizon. It really gave you like a sense of they feel like they're really small in this giant galaxy.
Yeah, and I loved all that. And at the end of the day, this was truly a Star Wars ghost story, and I love that.
Final favorite moment for me, to bring it back a little bit to comedy, is I love the contrast when they're kind of camping out and getting ready, and they're joking and they're kicking ghosts up the arse in their minds, and Baython Express coming through, and then the slam to the dark cave.
Yeah.
The contrast between light and dark was solid.
Solid indeed. No, love that.
All right, we are going to take a quick break, and we'll be back in a moment to discuss the next 2 episodes of Visions Volume 2. Back in a moment. And we are back to continue our discussion of Visions Volume 2. We are up to Episode 3, entitled In the Stars, by Punk Robot Studios, a Chilean studio, directed by Gabriel Osorio, and produced by Pato Escala. Written by Gabriel Osorio, Antonio Herrera, and Francisco Ortega. Ken, what was your overall reaction to this one?
Yes, I really love this one, and my fiance Grace is right. It was real sad, but it's also real uplifting, and that's kind of sometimes the dance, right? The light and the dark coming together. Really thought this one was great, and one of the reasons that I thought it was really, really, really solid and really hit home was the decision to kind of just transfer the Star Wars designs from the Empire directly over. and that there wasn't a drastic reinterpretation of the Empire. It was the Empire we know, which again does not mean that I'm like, oh, it's the canon side of it. But this felt right at home in Star Wars. Like this, you could have told me, oh yeah, this is some canon story that we're sharing with you. And there's something about that I liked because it felt story wise right at home in Star Wars. A direct interpretation of it, Empire taking resources, it's all there. But so you take what is so Star Wars and you put it with this real, cultural perspective. So it made it a special kind of powerful to me.
Yeah, no, I really agree with that. There was so much that was new in this, the
Mhm.
design of the world, design of the characters, the style of the animation. But yeah, it was great to just see like, hey, and snowtroopers are here too.
Yeah, and ATST's here. Like it was. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, this one was like rescue cream on a burn after the previous one. It was a balm. This was like the Return of Jedi or Rise of Skywalker of the series so far to me. Of
Mhm.
like, ooh, yeah, there's some darkness and it's bittersweet, but there is light, there is victory, there is hope. Absolutely love Screechers Reach, and I probably will
Mhm.
be revisiting it, and it's so great to see something new. But I was kind of just on the edge of my seat with this one of, is it gonna go dark like Screechers Reach, or
Mhm.
is it gonna pull through? The way they played with is the younger sister, Coton,
Mhm.
is she just wrong about having the Force? Like, that
Ah,
tension lived with me throughout the episode of like, is it jeez. Yeah. In this one, I think
that's
even go I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, that's funny, but tragically funny, but funny. Yeah.
It's still scary, real
Yeah.
scary.
Mhm.
I think separating this one from Screecher's Reach and just looking at it all by itself, one of my other overall reactions to it was, this great Star Wars tradition of sometimes going real dark, to
Mhm.
make the light shine. And I think because Star Wars is fun, because it's a blockbuster, because sometimes it can have really silly, wacky, wild things, I think sometimes people don't fully give Star Wars credit for going really dark so that when you ascend to the light, it
Mhm.
feels powerful, it feels earned. And I think this episode was in that tradition where this wasn't like they had the rest of these women's people, these sisters
Mhm.
village in a cage and they rescued them.
Right.
Yay, they're dead. Uh,
Yeah.
this was a genocide.
Mhm.
um, it went dark so it could go somewhere light, and I think really made it powerful. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think there was a lot of stuff of the cost of the cause here, and standing up and fighting is a great first step forward, and it's important, something we should do. And the younger sister has that vibe all the way through. I've got to do this, right? And but that doesn't mean there isn't some cost to it. It doesn't mean that those who are fighting now might be fighting for the future generations, and they're not going to get to experience the change they caused, right? That kind of vibe as well.
Hmm.
But that doesn't mean you shouldn't stand up. And the mother and that wonderful story, the art piece, the mother standing up, it just drove home why, and again the cost of it there, and then the art itself just being the power of art to keep the stories going, to keep inspiring. That's why we keep coming back to Star Wars. That's why we keep diving in and having these deep dives every week. It's the power of this silly little franchise and this silly little
Hmm.
saga, and the art needs to keep going because the stories and the legacy needs to keep going.
Yeah, I really agree with that. So for you, would you say that is the overall idea of what's the cost?
I'd say the cost, but also the we are not alone vibe all the way through
Mm,
it. So that's going to pull you through a lot of the stuff. So there's the cost. That's horrible. That's sad. You talk. It was a genocide here. It's too big. It's too overwhelming. They just simply want water. They didn't want to take down an empire. They want water to survive. And there's all that. But through it all, the idea that you're not alone. It's a pretty powerful driving force.
yeah, yeah. I thought this one had a lot of great and powerful ideas. I think it's not like Star Wars doesn't tell lots and lots of stories of of oppression, of
Mhm.
more and more stories of this is a part of what the evil of what the empire does is it's they're a violation against nature, of against planets, against the actual living world. They're killing worlds
Mhm.
in plundering them for resources, and we're getting those stories told more and more, and really cementing that. We've seen the empire victimize individuals and groups of people and disrespect culture that has been baked into it from the beginning. We didn't get to see a lot of Alderaanian culture, but
Mhm.
wiping out a planet in the first movie, and then we're really getting into the
Mhm.
depth of that in a lot of the publishing stories, but also on screen in Andor. So it's not like that isn't there, but
Mhm. Mhm.
there was something that felt very real, very authentic, very responding to real world events in this. And,
Mhm.
and I don't know if that's just because my
Mhm.
I'm filtering these through what cultural ideas are people bringing.
Mhm.
Um, I am not again an expert on Chilean culture or history, but I this one made me go and really literally look
Mhm.
at Chilean history on
Mhm.
Wikipedia and try to remember and understand
Mhm.
what this culture believes in, what this culture has been through, and that's I think the power of this is it can open doors to that. And again, not
Yeah.
saying I'm an expert in any means.
Mhm.
I read a Wikipedia page for 15 minutes. I am not an expert, but it made me
Yeah.
curious to understand beyond a footnote.
Mhm.
Because it felt so palpable, it felt so real, it felt like such a lived story.
Well, yeah, yeah. So a studio gets this gig, and you're like, what story do we want to tell? What is truly our perspective? What's our experience, either as individuals, as a culture overall, as our own history? Yeah, that's absolutely why they should be doing this project overall, Lucasfilm and the whole team. And then exactly what you're talking about gets you to press pause a little bit, huh? And I think that's shown through this one a lot. It was very
Yeah.
good. It was very it just worked me on a lot of levels. It just was very real. Very real.
Yeah. Yeah, I was definitely moved by this one. I truly agree with you about it. It really strongly raises the question of, is it worth fighting? That's almost like
Mhm.
the central question of the plot, and I that I was waiting for the piece to answer, and the
Mhm.
piece came around to yes. But within that, there's so much else going on. I
Mhm.
loved seeing the older sister Tachina. Uh, that a lot of times we talk about fear, it can be well, just push past your fear and do it, and sometimes that's true, and you absolutely need to do that.
Mhm.
But there's that line between fear and caution, right? There's that line between,
Mhm.
I'm
Mhm.
afraid to send an email because what if I get a bad response? Like, yep,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
hard, it's life. um but Gina's there's nothing irrational about this fear, right?
Mm.
uh
Mm.
she has every reason to be cautious, so it's really fun and interesting to watch a character who is letting fear hold them back, but you're so like, I understand, of course,
Mm.
because this isn't irrational fear. This is caution. This is cautious fear. How did you feel about that? Did you find yourself, just wanting her to move forward, or did you find yourself wanting her, feeling like she was right, and little sister should stay home?
No, well, I mean, look, it kind of goes back to our discussions with Omega, especially in season one, where I'm like, I think it's okay if Hunter's like, you don't need to enter a blaster fight right now. Like,
Yeah.
I have that. That's an okay instinct, but because it's a Star Wars story, and it's trying to tell a bigger thing there. I think there was something. We keep talking about the cost of the cause, but how that can relate to you related it wonderfully to our own lives. That email might you might be needing something, you might be asking for something, and it's an email, it's a step forward in your life, in career, relationship, but it's going to disrupt the normal. And
Mm,
it's easy to hold on to that normal because it's a survival thing. Like it's almost what we talked to Screechers Reach. Hey, there's worse lives, there's better lives, and both things are right. And I
mm,
think for the older sister to be like, no, 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 we've got to survive. Maybe I shouldn't be going, but we need water. That's why I'm going. You need to stay there. Um, totally valid and an honest response. But that kind of stuff can hold you back from experiencing something brand new. It's a struggle we all have. It's a struggle with change. It's a struggle with risk. And going back to even the Sith, acknowledging the fear, acknowledging that's going on. And then that becomes what you described as caution, knowing the difference between fear and caution. It's not quite a Yoda lesson yet. Maybe Yoda did say at some point, maybe not Republic. Caution, you must know. I really think that that's what you can pull out and apply to your own life. And this is why this episode worked on a lot of levels.
Yeah. No, I really agree with that. And I wanted to highlight that because I didn't want to just be like, yeah, Tachina was held back by fear.
Yeah. No.
Because she is, and extremely well said on the email thing. That's what it is. It's about the risk of connection and the risk of often reaching out for help because you desperately
Yeah. Or
need help. And what if you get no response or an angry response or
Yeah, I think sometimes in life, you fear the answer is no, but even more so, you fear the answer being yes, because that's something brand new and disrupts everything. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But I think what really was powerful to me about this was this idea that it was a question of should we take the risk to fight, but it
Mhm.
was a little bit more of, well, what do we have left if we don't fight?
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is a question that comes up in Star Wars. That I'm trying to remember Jyn Erso's exact quote, but it's brought up of what are we gonna have left if we don't fight against the Death Star?
Mhm.
I'm not remembering the exact quote, but um, I thought that's what was really powerful about it was what Tachina was managing was some water to survive. It was just survival and nothing
Mhm.
else. And by the end of this story, what was at stake to me uh, was not just the question of is the cost worth fighting. It was if we don't fight, the light will die.
Mhm.
Everything that is valuable to us will die. The idea that the water is for personal survival, but it's also the beating heart of the planet itself. The
Mhm.
planet will die. And the water doesn't just sustain our bodies, it sustains our souls. It is what allows us to paint. It's what allows us to connect to our ancestors. It's what
Mhm.
connects us to the stars. Um, there's the idea of Maslow's hierarchy of needs that talks about what are the things that humans need to survive. And if you don't have those things, then you can't go on to dream, to paint, to create, to connect.
Mhm.
And this was to me, it made me think of that because it was about if we don't fight, we won't have any of the things that our souls need, and
Mhm.
all the great, beautiful literalizations of that of their ancestors aren't gone, they're in the stars, but the pollution in the clouds are bringing it in, and from the
Mhm.
first shot, crushing the magic
Yeah.
of the flower. Um, to me, it was just it was a powerful conversation because on one hand, it's like, yeah, we all need more than food and drink. We need
Yeah.
friends and joy. I get it,
Mhm.
but I
Mhm.
think often in our debates about what is needed in our culture, the importance of the bare minimum of human existence is shelter,
Mhm.
food, water, other humans around you, so that then we can achieve our potential
Mhm.
and honor our ancestors and make art and remember our history and enjoy the physical beauty of the world. uh, those are the things that we all need.
Yeah, you're talking about the reasons for living, right? The reasons for getting up
Yeah.
every day and going to calf center. Yeah, absolutely. And you have a powerful entity like the Empire that is just taking, uh, taking at will, taking with impunity. Yeah, that's the true cost. I thought this episode had a lot. There's a spiritual connection to Solo, right? Why I love Solo's
Hmm.
story, and what the Empire is truly doing. We original trilogy, the Empire. Yeah, they're very clear they're the bad guys. I think it's all in there. It's all said, but it's a fast
Hmm.
moving story about a rebellion against an empire. But Star Wars since then, and a lot of its stuff, and this follows suits. Which again, why I love the use of the things we recognize. That's snowtroopers, ATSTs,
Mm-hmm.
Hey, that's the Empire I grew up with and collecting out of the Sears catalog. But this is what they're doing, and this is what they're truly destroying, and piece by piece, water drop by water drop.
Yeah, yeah, it was really, really powerful. It reminded me of some of the moments in Rise of Skywalker too, of the
Mhm.
memory of Han saying to Ben Solo, "Your mother may be gone, but what she stood for, what she fought for, that's not gone." Poe's in Finn's speech, but I think particularly some of Poe's lines in the montage where everybody's getting in the ships, it often gets me teary of like, what our mothers and fathers fought for, we won't let die today.
Mhm.
There
Mhm.
was this real sense of by fighting back, they unlocked their connection to the Force, which is their heritage. By fighting back, they honored their mother, they honored their
Mhm.
village, they honored their planet, they kept the spirits of the past alive. They won so much. It wasn't just a we chased the bad guys away. They won so much for themselves, is what made this one really powerful for me.
I absolutely love that. Love everything, and just the stars emerging got me a little teary eyed at the end too. I think
Yeah.
to go dark and to really make the light mean even more, that much
Yeah.
more worked for me.
Did you have a favorite moment of action or comedy or a shot? Was it the shots of the snowtroopers?
That the terror of the Tie Fighter and the first view first
Mm,
emerging through kind of this dark beauty. It's dark indeed, and suffocating life, like you said, but it's also got that there's a beauty in that darkness that they were showing. And so just a great shot because it just set the tone. Um, um, and I just loved everything of that. The designs of the sisters, from the mask, from the taking of the older sister having, the armor sort of worked into her design. And
mhm.
I thought, again, that could, that's the kind of stuff that makes me think, awesome. As you tell, keep doing visions, but then you got some wonderful, talented people who understand Star Wars and what it means to them. I'd love to see. It's not like, hey, give these folks a movie, but just like, hey, you get in those meetings. Like, what is it? What kind of designs can you bring into Star Wars? That kind of stuff. That was one of the moments where I was like, I'd love to see that down the line.
Yeah. No, I really agree with that. There's so many just great shots. The water and the flower essence
Hmm.
combining to play out the backstory on the rock and seeing animation within animation and the line "Mom used to
Hmm.
do it like this" to just connect everything to the sense of heritage.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
love that was the kind of the first thing I loved, and then it was so triumphant and so sad with the ATSD.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and then I think because I got caught up in my own anxiety of like, well, clearly they believe their mom had the force. That's what the backstory is telling us. Like, I think I
Mhm.
was still. This is the part where I was still wounded by Screechers Reach. Of is Tachina going to be able to catch Coden? So the visual in the audio whoomp that which we're familiar with for the force kicking in, but
Mhm.
the actual visual
Mhm.
ripple
Great.
that it was great visual, great just different interpretation of how to show the force, and then for me, it
Mhm.
was just like such relief from the dark thoughts I've been having.
Yeah. 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 I put that note too. It's just is a great interpretation of the force in action.
Yeah, final one for me is using the water, the violated and stolen resource to cleanse the land of imperial corruption. Thematically cool, but also really cool to see that there could be this fixation on the ATSD was the awful
Mhm.
thing that was
Yeah.
too much for
Mhm.
their mom, and instead of just trying to attack it,
Mhm.
without words, them both coming up with a better solution.
Mhm.
It was this very fun, rewarding, thematically deep moment, but it was also that sort of like feeling of like learning from the past and
Mhm.
the younger generation learning from the previous generation of
Mhm.
we've got our mother took it this far, and because we learned from her, we know how to take it the next step farther to victory.
It's a wonderful interpretation of it. I wrote this moment down too of love them using the force on the water, not the walker. And hey, you could even say it's a little bit of say what you love, save what you love, not fight what you hate. Right? The water is
Hmm.
life. So let's save that. But to tie it to the generational change and generational lessons in the next generation, improving what came before, is a wonderful, beautiful way to look at it, and an intentional use of it. Right, from the art piece that ATSD and that art piece just go,
Mhm.
and then and to play it out the way they did, and how that ends up saving everything, right? Not just them in that moment, not just for the little water. It saves them, the culture, the planet, all those things, and topples the empire on this planet for the moment as well. Beautiful,
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah. Did you find yourself wondering if the Empire is gonna come back?
Hey, that's the benefit of a little short film here. Maybe we don't have to wonder. Maybe we don't have to wonder about that. But my
Yeah.
hope is, I don't say my hope isn't that they would leave. They don't need to. They don't. They shouldn't have to. But yeah, I think it's the sense of these are two powerful beings, and I'd love to see them in the galaxy at large. Maybe that's the desire I had.
Yeah. I think whatever happens, they're gonna be okay.
Be okay.
Any other thoughts before we move on to the final one we're talking about this episode?
No, great stuff.
All right. Well, we will move on to episode 4. I Am Your Mother from Aardman Studios, a British company that I think some people are familiar with.
Mhm.
Directed by Magdalena Osinska, written by Holly Wash and Bronca O'Shaughnessy. Additional writing, Sam Morrison. Ken, what was your overall reaction to this one?
So I love this one. This was also the first one I watched. I actually watched this one last week. And I watched it because I knew what to expect of the studio and even some of the previews. And I wanted to really see Dennis Lawson as Wedge again. And I thought, and I think because of what I'd carried over from the first batch in volume 1, where there were a little bit more serious, big epic tales. And I was like, I don't know if I'm ready for that. Let me go to this one. I bet this one's funny. It's got that Wookiee in it. I know I can at least laugh at that. And so it was a interesting starting point. And in the end, that's what it was for me. This was absolute joy of an episode. And the focus on all of these, you mentioned these female characters at the forefront, but the mother relationships. And this one just means so clear in a very UK way. Just the loud punk rock mom, sort of embarrassing. It all really worked for me there. And it is fun designs. And I think these ones really helped me. I think it was a good way to start, unintentionally, as it was. It was a good way to kind of separate me from worrying about any other details about these stories, to just enjoy them as they present themselves.
Yeah, I really agree with that. Like I said, I watched this on May the 4th. I started the morning with the Sith, and then had a big fun day and went to that screening of Return of the Jedi at the Academy Museum, and then came home and was like, I want a snack and one more bit of Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what I watched. And what a great way to end. It is so fun and so celebratory, but still has meaning, still has ideas, still
Mm-hmm.
talks, I think, to the other episodes in Visions season 2. I really like that it was set in this different era, that's so clearly set in the New Republic era. Talk about pulling from all different parts of Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Really cool to see Wedge. It's fun to see Wedge, but
Yeah.
it's also fun to see Hannah City on Chandrilla, which,
Mm-hmm.
if you look it up on Wikipedia, it it's not like canon Star Wars is dripping with Hannah City references.
Mm-hmm.
It's in the Aftermath books. It's mentioned in Andor. It's mentioned in Last Shot. I think maybe some stuff happens in
Right.
Hannah City and Last Shot, given the timeline. But it's not something that's been plastered all over screens. It's not like going to Bespin, right?
Yeah.
So that was really cool and interesting to me. So it gave it this freshness. It gave me this little bit of a canon junkie satisfaction without being overly worried about it. And then also it had this great, to me, Phantom Menace vibes, because it is a race,
Yeah.
because the main character's name is Annie. But also, the prequel trilogy is ultimately a tragedy, but as a lot of people have said, Phantom Menace still has this sense of youth and fun and
Mm-hmm.
joy. And I felt that in this.
All the way through. Joy. Absolutely.
Yeah. So what did you feel this one was about? What was at stake in I Am Your Mother?
You know what I put it down? This is what a love over snark. I think it started there. You got the Van Riepels, it's parenting lessons too, I guess. How not to parent. No encouragement, competition that doesn't build, it destroys. No true love, no true support, like I said, versus the other side. It's love's a little messy, love's a little embarrassing. But love is love and family, and the sense of mother always being there for you, always getting through, and the sense of like pride, but in that good way, pride. Obviously, what Yoda might warn against pride, but just this like, no, this ain't gonna happen to it. I'm here for you. We're gonna race. I'm your mom. I'm your family. I loved all those kind of vibes, and that was the big thing. But again, at the end of the day, love over snark, kids. Love over snark.
Love over snark. I love that. Yeah, I really thought it kind of came down to this idea of not being ashamed of who you are.
Mm-hmm.
There was a couple different filters that I saw the main character Annie through, and it seemed like she was kind of wrestling with owning any of them. And then her mom comes in and gets her to embrace all these different factors of herself by encouraging her. I feel like, Annie, of course, had the embarrassment of her mom. So there's a sort of I'm ashamed of my family. There's so much in this that is about socioeconomic class. It's the contrast between the rich and miserable Van Riepels with the fancy ship versus the shame of everything that is coded as working class. So Annie is having shame of her family, but she's also having shame of her socioeconomic class. And she's also she's not ashamed of being a pilot, but I think there's a little bit of like, I would be embarrassed if people saw how much this was my dream. That it's a fun game for her and her mom at home to pretend to be the legendary Red Leader, Red 2. But a little bit, I can't let people see that I think I could actually be that. It's fun to pretend, but if somebody finds out I actually think I could be Red Leader someday. So I feel like her mom convinces her to not be ashamed of her family, of her class, and her own dreams. Good job, Mom.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. And truly a mother that's there for her child versus a mother that's still clearly there for herself. Yeah, no, I think it's a great way to look at it. And the class thing, the working class, I don't know, that rings very UK to me, right? I don't know. We just had a little royal thing happen at the World Watch that seemed a little, I don't know, out of place. And you might feel bad in comparison to that. And I love what you're saying too about this is who I am, right? A pilot. This is what I want to be. And having a little bit of shame of that is absolutely a powerful Star Wars lesson to work through it. And be who you are.
I think when I saw the title, I Am Your Mother, when everything was released, I think I saw the title, I Am Your Mother, and I think I saw Aardman Studios, and I was excited at both, but forgot they were the same.
Right.
The same one. So there was a part of me when I very first saw the title, I Am Your Mother, that I thought it would be a little bit sort of like a heavier re-examination of the famous Empire Strikes Back moment, the famous relationship. And I love that it was a celebration of mothers and of the maternal relationship with a child. But I love that it was also a subversion, I love that it was not a revelation, but a confirmation of that. Of course I'm embarrassing. I'm your mother.
Yeah.
So it's so a confirmation of like the idea of a mom, or at least this one aspect of like, I'm here for you.
Yeah.
But yeah, hey, sometimes moms are embarrassing. Deal with it, kid. Fireworks.
Sometimes they're gonna chase after you with your lunch that you missed, but you need your lunch.
Yep. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that was great. I think there was a great classic Star Wars everyone matters idea by kind of attacking the rich people. This was for everyone. This is an era that is for everyone. There was the other family that was kind of judgy of that Wookiee, and the Wookiee wasn't having it.
I love that.
There was a lot of that tension there that was great. And there's also that great Star Wars idea that's really present in the stars as well, of tradition, and that the Ryloth role being the winning factor was really powerful.
Love that.
I've seen some people talking about this on social media, given the era in that they are in a New Republic Academy dreaming of pilots. How much was Hera's presence felt for you, that this is a young Twi'lek who looks up to Wedge Antilles, probably very aware of who Harrison Dula is? Were you affected by that?
Yeah, no, she's got those posters on her wall, and I think Hera's in there.
I missed that.
Yeah, to be honest, it took me 3 viewings to see. because there's the Max Rebo plush that's on the bed, and you just look
Yeah.
behind it, and there's the hair. I believe it's Hera. It's the design that we're familiar with. So I think that absolutely makes sense. It elevates Hera as a character, I think, as we move forward in Star Wars storytelling. But yeah, I love that, and it all tied into the Ryloth roll with me and the purpose of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I love that. Now I get to go look at that poster again.
Yeah. I was trying. I have to go back to. I think there's also a Wedge one up there. Someone out there would correct me, but yeah.
Yeah, a lot of great Wedge stuff. I love crashing through the Wedge digital
Mhm,
billboard.
mhm,
Last kind of like idea that was really interesting to me is the Van Riepels. I believe one is it Jolin and Dora Van Riepel.
mhm,
They are very classic villains of rich, cruel, status obsessed.
mhm,
Second place is last place. Is you said a destructive form of competition instead of a constructive form of competition, which I love.
mhm,
Great
mhm,
turn of phrase. Um, but it's easy for me to look at this one as like, after 3 episodes of
mhm.
heavy Sith and Imperial
Yeah.
oppression and rot, this is the fun one. But the Van Riepels could have just been they're yeah, rich, snooty, upper class meanies,
Mhm.
but they are coded as dark side. They are
Oh, yeah.
in a dark ship with red glowing things. They have their head shapes with their hair is almost Vader like.
Mhm.
But then specifically that very funny beat with they have a Death Star ball. How, how did you feel of the? I mean, it's a fun Star Wars joke, and there's lots of other
Mhm.
jokes like it in it. But how do you feel like they're so coded to the dark side that they've even got a mini Death Star?
I think it's just a reminder of the tenets of the dark side, if you will. All the things we preach about sometimes, and here they are. It's on display. And I think if they were to slide this into canon, they'd be Imperial remnants, and Carson Teva would have to be worried about them. Yeah, no, I think it's beyond the joke. Like you and I always say, there's always some. For the most part, I believe there should be some purpose in the humor. And what are you trying to tell with your joke? And I think it's just a reminder of what the dark side is when you break it down to a base level.
Yeah, I really agree with that. I think it's a total message of, the dark side is not just for red lightsabers.
Mhm,
uh,
mhm,
anyone who is, cruel and status obsessed and
mhm.
cares more about their own victory and vanity than their child.
Yeah, yeah.
The dark side is for everybody.
Mm.
Uh, I'll work on that turn of phrase. Any favorite moments of action, comedy, any other beats?
Yeah, I from the beginning, I loved Z1 and loved the design, and I think BD1's a little bit like this too in Survivor. It's one of my and Fallen Order. BD1 is one of my favorite things in those games. But if you got a droid, just make him a dog because it's kind of what they've always seemed like to me in a good way. I'm a dog person, right? So Z1 just being a dog was wonderful. Love that.
Yeah. Yeah, a little slinky dog was
Mhm.
great. The wedge stuff was really, really fun.
I loved it. I loved it.
I think this one was shown at Star Wars Celebrations. Everybody's like, "Wedge is great," and I just remember like, "Wedge is in I Am Your Mother? This is a real different one than I thought." Um, but it great just comedy acting, and I think great, light poking fun at the truth of Star Wars, that it has all this depth, but it's also, hey, there's some merchandise.
Mhm,
So I
mhm.
loved his "Believe it or not, it's hosted by me,"
Yeah.
Wedge Antilles. But,
Oh, yeah.
not 1, but 2, because it's in the credits too, of the "Be sure to check out the official Wedge-themed products at my merchandise stall." How did you feel about the merch jokes?
I loved it. I love Wedge as kind of a B-level star. He's in that autograph wing at conventions. That doesn't cost as much as the other wing. You know what I mean? Love that kind of Wedge vibe, and also something about Star Wars too. You talk about got a story here of the working class. That's one of the things in Star Wars. Like there was a Dark Horse 4-issue series right before they lost the license back in the day. That it was really good. It told the stories of like Chewie, Han, Luke, Leia. I think that's the 4 they focused on, but it was from the perspective of other people in the galaxy who didn't have that status, right? So they were kind of these almost celebrities in the story, and I think that's fascinating to put Wedge up there in that code. He's the guy he took down the Death Star with Lando. Like he's got a level of fame here. So I think there's a lot of different ways to look at it, and just funny. I want some Wedge merch.
Yeah, I mean, Wedge has such a great trajectory from being, when we were kids, one of the like, do you know the name of the one other guy who survived all the
Yeah,
battles?
yeah.
And like, he was one of the first shared trivia fun facts for the fandom that I encountered, and then I think just exploded in popularity in the EU uh,
Mhm.
from books, and now has this real important role, I think, in new canon of being the face of the ongoing
Yeah.
um, Republic fleet. The new Republic fleet is
Mhm.
really powerful and great legacy, and great to have him around and to have some fun with his fame, and great comedy turn of phrase to say wedge themed products.
Yeah.
It's just like, what does that mean? Is there like, a coffee shop, a coffee cup, a calf cup in the shape of his head?
If it is, I want it, and in this design too.
Yeah, I want to drink out of Wedge's head. Final one for me, because there's so many moments of comedy in action. The Ryloth roll itself, and the
Yeah.
split screen of them both being thrilled and enjoying it. That was great. But I think my single favorite thing is when the mother, according to the credits, named Colleen, when Colleen shows up in the space tug, that the first embarrassing article of clothing appears to be a brassiere of some kind. It easily could have been like underwear. That would have been like kind of the classic comedy
Mhm.
go-to, but the bra felt pointed.
Mm.
It felt like a
Yeah.
take that, George Lucas, with the infamous
Yep.
stories of him telling Carrie Fisher there are no bras in space, and the great comedy heights that
Yeah.
that Carrie Fisher took that whole
Yeah.
discussion to. It
Mhm.
felt like that, because you don't see bras in
I think
Star
that.
Wars.
Mm.
Metal bikinis, sure, but
Mhm.
I don't know. I thought it was funny and powerful and different.
No, no, absolutely. It's a great feminine energy there too. No, I love that. The mother was great. She has one of my favorite lines: "Family race for families." Love that take. Love that read.
Yeah, extremely funny.
Mm.
Any other thoughts on this one before we wrap up?
Yeah, one little final. I'm going to call it a funny little the sight gag. There was the 3 porta potties in the back, and they had like Jawa size, like humanoid size, and like Wookiee size. That was great.
Well, I got to go to a frame by frame rewatch
Do it. Do it.
of this one, because both times it's just
Mhm.
flown by, no pun intended at
Yeah.
all. But a very great episode to end this episode of our podcast on. Can't wait to dive into the remaining 5. Ken, where can people find us?
Hey, you can find us on Twitter, ForceCenter Pod. We're on Instagram and YouTube as well. Subscribe over there. We got an episode of Figure Fights up now. More stuff on the way. Facebook page is ForceCenter Podcast. We are available on Acast, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn, and more. Merch available, tpublic.com/user/ForceCenter. Get some ForceCenter themed merch over there. Patreon.com/ForceCenter is where you can join us and support us directly. Get into our Discord server there. And you can find and follow me at Ken Napzok. Go to my website, kennapzok.com. And Joseph, where can they find and follow you, and tell them again about that Kickstarter?
Oh, thank you for teeing me up. Yeah, you can find me on social media at Joseph Scrimshaw is my handle, pretty much everywhere: Twitter, Instagram, Mastodon, all sorts of different places, TikTok. And yes, if you're at all interested, just want to see what it is or help out, again, the first day makes such a huge difference. You can go check for it on any of my social media feeds, or you can just go to Kickstarter and search for The Nightmare Adorable, a horror film about comedy and horror. And as you can see from all of our discussions today, I'm pretty invested in both those things. So thank you for considering it. Thank you all for listening to this episode of ForceCenter. We can't wait to dive deep into the rest of Visions Season 2. All that later. For now, for myself, for Ken, for that floating space brassiere, this has been ForceCenter.